company. And what I started at Pepsi was I actually, we didn't own the bottling system. And my job was to go out and co-op media with them and get them to, spend $1 where I spent $1 and not buy like Wheel of Fortune for Mountain Dew. So fast forward, 17, 16 years, I'm leading the strategy group now. We're omni-channel, we're consumer folk first. The digital landscape has exploded. So, we are always transforming ourselves as well, not just from media, but our brands, right? Some of them are market leaders and some of those are market challengers. Right. So innovation is a big part of our DNA in order to, stay one step ahead. So it's always an exciting time.
Cool. And I think in the wake of what we're seeing, and I think we talked about this a little bit prior to jumping up here, was literally the large regulation that's just happening around data just overall. How has that either impacted PepsiCo or influenced maybe future strategies, especially when it comes to digital execution?
Yeah, absolutely. So data in general is a big part of our strategy. Like Hershey, we're a packaged good company. We don't own a lot of data, but we have been on a data journey for a number of years. And specifically for media, we do activate against our proprietary, what we call CDNA data, which is a combination of whatever first-party data we have, which is compliant in the clean room, along with second and third-party data. We have a lot of people who enter sweepstakes. We have people who want to sign up, and win stuff. And then we have a whole host of local marketers who do a lot of text to wins and stuff like that. So we do have some in not your D2C fashion, but more in the consumer engagement fashion of data. So what we've seen by using data is we have actually become much more effective in driving the business from a media perspective. So I would say as of now, for almost all of our digital campaigns, we are activating data as the fundamental baseline of our campaigns. And then we'll layer in other targeting, if it's behavioral targeting, location targeting, or contextually relevant targeting. But everything starts with data for us.
Great. And with that, foundational layer of data, we were talking about this also earlier, which was just really interesting, your POV with respect to personalization and what that means going forward. And you mentioned that focusing on the occasion, right? It's the occasion personalization. And is that and when you say that, thinking of different ways we should be thinking of what personalization means with what we've historically associated with what that means?
So yes, and I think personalization honestly is a loaded question because it means something different to probably everybody in this room, right? So personalization could be, hey, I'm thirsty right now and I have purchase data that shows that I am a Pepsi drinker or a Mountain Dew drinker. Or it could be I live in LA and it's over 90 degrees out and I'm really thirsty and I really would like to hydrate with a Life water. So for us, I think we are trying to figure out, and we do a lot of testing and learning on how personalization at scale, because it's very important that we drive scale, drives the business. And it could be any one of those things that we just talked about. Specifically, for Pepsi, we really got into the occasion base. So Pepsi and meals. We have a campaign that's called Better with Pepsi, and it's all about having good times with your friends, eating great food, and enjoying a Pepsi. So there's certainly occasions and white spaces for the brands to play in. And when you have multiple brands, you have to find different occasions. Otherwise, you start to cannibalize each other. So it is very important for us to have swim lanes and a map of where the brands are going to be for the consumer need states.
Great. I can attest to occasion-based. My partner, I'm from LA, so we need those pretzel dots. But it's always changing. He's vegan one week, and then he's not vegan, and now he's gluten-free, but he doesn't have celiac. I'm like, so I can't even keep track, literally. And so, but then he's ordering hamburgers. So I'm curious as to how do you think about that? And is that what a triggering moment is to kind of help Pepsi think about that in just, we don't know who we are. We change from one week to the next. And the reliance of, say, cookie-based, data or targeting is really at the core, I believe, focused on trying to identify who you are and then sticking with that and feeding that and assuming that what you did before is what you're going to do before or next, etc. Have you just kind of noticed that that change for you in thinking about creative or just targeting or strategies overall?
Yeah, I think, the way we think about it, and you're right, people are obviously going to change their buying habits. They're going to look to see what's on sale. Value plays a big proponent, especially for a soft drink brand. But I think what we do really well is we also try to be very relevant in what is happening in culture. And that gives us an edge for a lot of our brands. And that we do use data, social listening, finding out what consumers are saying, what's trending. And then we try to make sure that our brands are producing creative content. The partnerships are right where we can drive that cultural relevance. And that is very important for our brands to do that, in addition to making sure that we understand who is actually purchasing our product, who will be purchasing our product, and who do we want to inspire to purchase our product, which is very different at any given time.
Right. We definitely know the up and coming generations are focused on authenticity and feeling like you're connecting with them at a moment that seems and appears real. So that makes a lot of sense that you've been transitioning or you've seen a lot of that shift. But as you make that shift, I'm assuming you have to rethink your attribution model or the way in which you're measuring ROI. How has that evolved? And as we think about just data analytics, how are you thinking about ROI with respect to your digital media spend or execution, knowing that it's evolved in so many different ways? Curious as to your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I would say ROI for sure is the source of truth on what drives a business, right? I mean, we're in the business of selling a lot of product and a lot of soda. So we need to understand, is it a good investment? And if it's not a good investment, what is the strategic reason why it may not be a good investment? So we do actually do our own modeling in-house. We built this capability a number of years ago. And for digitally specific, we actually get reads from all of our partners directly, so we can actually figure out what partner, what platform, what channel is driving ROI for every brand. In terms of effectiveness, we have seen the trend going back to the use of data, right? Over the last 4 years, when you do infuse data, you drive more effectiveness, not efficiency, effectiveness, which then in turn drives ROI. And then I would say the last thing that is not just ROI, but in terms of measurement that's very important for us is brand health. We measure brand equity. Is it a brand that consumers love? And that is more of a long term. So we're always balancing the long term with the short term, which isn't always easy when you need to make your sales goals, but you also have to build brands. And we are in the business of building brands in addition to selling products. So that's what is kind of our special sauce.
Especially in this economic climate,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's like, I want efficiency, but if you look at history, the brands that have stayed close and connected and building a loyal relationship come out on the other side more successfully.
Mm-hmm.
So is it the short-term gain in expense of the long-term value? So it's an interesting time, I think,
Yes.
we're in, right? In trying to navigate that. Interesting. Now, for us at GumGum, we think a lot about, we talked about, we think about the future, obviously, and we're thinking a lot when it comes to the consumer's mindset at the time in which they're engaging in any digital environment. So we focus on contextual and attention and creative. How do you think of those components going into kind of your future strategies as the first part of the question? And then I'll love to build off of that into getting your perspectives into kind of how Pepsi's thinking about maybe things like that into these new emerging environments, like CTV or in-gaming, where the tactics that maybe we had available to us for the web or OLV are not available. And so how are you thinking of new foundational approaches? And then how is that maybe translating into a couple of these new emerging areas?
Yeah, I think it's not easy to figure out. I think we're looking at a lot of technology solutions to help us enable that from a media perspective, where we can serve versionings of content. It can, AI can make different versions. It can change the audio. It can change the copy. And then we can use data to target and make it contextually relevant based on that data. Where I still think it's a challenge is where you guys do well is, making it that contextually relevant. So if I'm on ESPN.com, right, or am I consuming sports content, do I really want to see an ad that's about a recipe or something? Or do I want to see something with an NFL player in it? So it's not easy. I think we do a very good job building campaigns and we have great creative ideas, but it's not always easy to build all the content for every single platform, for every single environment, and it's not very cost prohibitive, right? So we're still working on that. I would say technology is going to be that unlock. And we work with a lot of our partners who have working on solutions, and we're looking at partners that are outside of the media publishers as well.
Yeah, we definitely share that sentiment. I think even contextual relevance, if you take a step back, when you think of not contextual relevance, I think you're creating to the anxiety that is our society. Right? Because you mentioned I'm reading about ESPN. I don't want to think about making dinner now. And you just reminded me I got to do that in an hour. Right. So now I'm anxious. And so now you're creating subconsciously anxiety amongst us in a force of using post kind of future technology advancement for targeting and a way in which to reach me. And I think that's definitely a concern. And now as you think about that, and you think about these new emerging environments, CTV obviously being significant. And obviously, I've been in the industry for a while now, over 11 years. So I start to have those flashbacks of everyone's diving into CTV, but I'm like, is it safe? Are you seeing where you're running? There's no technologies that are accredited in these areas. How are you navigating it? So how do you approach knowing what an opportunity your target consumers are living and consuming and engaging so much of their time now in this new emerging environment, yet knowing that maybe technology, it's not giving you the comfort or the level of understanding around what's actually happening with the creative in that space when you actually deploy it. So curious as to your thoughts around just your approach to that environment.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think the streaming environment or CTV or OTT is very complex. We know consumers are going there, and we know we need to be there. But to your point, some of them aren't all ad supported. Some of them are just starting ad supported. They themselves are learning and don't have the technology and the capability yet, where some of other digital platforms have it. So we're trying to weigh that against we know consumers are spending time there. I think we are looking at, more of the programmatic way to buy it. And it's not necessarily tied to the right content, but again, finding the right consumer at the right time using that data point. So using programmatic solutions where we can frequency cap, where we can make sure that we are extending reach and keeping costs down. And then working with each publisher to put in those PepsiCo guardrails and making sure that they understand where our brands can play, what content is safe, what content is not safe. Hopefully one day we will get to a point where we can be contextually relevant in those. I think right now, if we can just get ads on there that have different creative and we can measure them, that's a win in my book.
Right. And consume it. Yes. All that work and money going into it, or finding an alternative where it stands out and you get that share of voice that you're so aspiring to get. And how do you think about that in gaming, right? For us, it's a big bet on our end. Leveraging contextual and leveraging that into the in-gaming ecosystem, especially knowing that the average in-game person is a woman 34, which people don't know for mobile. How do you approach in-game as a category? Or have you thought about that as an emerging environment?
We certainly have. And gaming is big on one of our brands, Mountain Dew. And I would say right now, we are very emerged in more of the influencer way of gaming, right? So we're not just running ads, we're emerged using influencers, we're sponsoring leagues, we're using live events, and then we're going into the metaverse. So we are taking a little bit of a different approach to the gaming environment. We know it's big. And then we'll also look to have products that gamers are looking for. So Mountain Dew has a product called Game Fuel, right? So that is made for gamers. So we want to make sure that we are connecting there. I think there's some opportunities, I would say, on some of our more mass brands like a Pepsi in getting into the casual gaming. We've dabbled in it for sure. I think we know the market's there, but I think coming down to creative and how the brand idea comes to life isn't always translated into the gaming environment as it is into the streaming or another content environment. So we'll get there for sure. But it's something that we're definitely looking at.
And it's on the industry technology-wise to be able to provide you some sort of measured outcome to these environments that you can then at least start to think about how it's integrating into your attribution models that you've built, right, for digital. And I think there's a combination that comes from both of them. So I think we're running up on time. So if there's one thing this year, that you think the industry could do better at, or you just think we should think about doing better at as an industry, what do you think that would be?
I mean, I think more flexibility. I think, the upfront marketplace, the different currencies is going to, cause more complexity in an industry that we don't need. I'm not loving that. I think being more real time, using data to make faster decisions would be great. And then I think we're still trying to figure out just a holistic measurement strategy, right? And that is not easy across multiple platforms who have different ad products and different ways of measuring, and then you have different currencies, and it's going to be a challenge. So if we can figure that out, and we're sitting here next year being like, hey, we figured it out, and the upfront actually happened in December and not in like April or May, I think I would feel much better about that.
That would be helpful in my planning too. If I could get that done before April for this year, that'd be great too. I'm sure my board would appreciate that. Well, thank you so much, Katie. This was really great. Really appreciate you joining me up here. And I think I'll kick it back. If there's any questions, sure.
Questions?
See, we were so thorough in our answers.
No? We did such a thorough job that we don't have any question. Oh, there's our one.
Hi. Excellent talk. Thank you very much. My name is Lynn, and I'm from the Hershey Company. When you think about media is only one piece that Pepsi's spending. You've got merchandising and you've got trade. So how are you thinking about the impressions across the entire suite in which you reach the consumer?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I think in a matrix organization, it's hard to do that. So brand Pepsi, you're 100% right? It's our food service business has a lot of impressions there. Then we have brand building, and then we have our shopper team, and then we have our e-com team. So I think a lot of it is breaking down silos and getting the teams in the right place to build holistic plans, which right now we are, and I think your colleague said you guys are also thinking about how the infrastructure works, right? And we are getting better at collaborating and building, syncing our plans together. But one, all the impressions are not measured the same way. Two, they're tied to different, revenue streams or profit centers, which makes it hard. And then three, people have different agendas, right? Like our marketers are charged with building brands. Our food service team is charged with winning business, right? So, and then we have a whole front line that's charged with getting the product on the shelf, right? So it is a little bit complex. Hopefully we'll get better. We're trying to take the complexity out of the system, but it's hard when you're a big company.
And I would just add, just separately, you still see the buying happening in silos across video, display, and emerging environments. And I don't think the industry has sorted out how to optimize a pre-roll ad against an overlay ad and in-game and determine which one's more successful. And so those budgets are still being allocated into individual buckets. And I think fundamentally from a digital effectiveness perspective, we need to find a way to be able to bridge and allow that efficiency or an ultimate effectiveness to happen across these allocated budgets into specific environments versus what's working to allow, to your point earlier, that mindset approach of now where you can maximize the return on investment for you, but the benefit for the consumer by showing that they're engaging and that they're actually paying attention.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
All right. We have time for one last question.
I think we all need some more Mountain Dew because it's late in the day. Energy's good. So question though, I know breaking down walls across flavors, tactics, lines of business, but also looking through even next year, even the year after, how do you kind of work on a global team, right? When you're applying best practices in each market so that you can be as fast as possible with looking at effectiveness.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I think first we start in the U.S., right, and we're getting better at portfolio advertising on the beverage side. In fact, we're actually getting much better, even though we've merged for a gazillion years now with Frito-Lay at doing portfolio advertising. We just had a holiday campaign last year. We had a Super Bowl campaign, and it all goes back from like media to shelf, right? So what's on display up to there. I think when it comes to global, every market is different and customized, and we have a global team that will develop, assets and toolkits that we can all share. But then every market is really charged with still customizing it that makes it relevant for the consumer to drive that business. So that's how we're kind of operating right now.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Let's
Thank you.
hear it for.
Thank you,
our
everybody.
panel
Thank you
for
so much.
Katie and
Thank
Phil.
you.
Thanks, Katie.